Yes, my name is Ossi Kuosmanen. Good evening, afternoon to everyone, not the evening yet. I work for the National Cybersecurity Center of Finland, and particularly in CERT-FI, in our CERT team. And I will give you a presentation about the importance of the root origin authorization. But first, why am I talking about routing security when I work for the CERT-FI? It really relates to our mission also to prevent information security incidents, not just the basic CERT work that we respond to incidents, but we also want to prevent them. Of course, we also disseminate information and we create situational awareness things and situational picture of the Finland. But our take to the routing security is based on few of our duties. And of course, there is the prevention, which is very important part, but also our mission is to ensure a proper and safe functioning of public communication networks and services. And of course, routing is one very important part of this. And also, we aim to protect the vital functions of the whole society. Among other stuff, of course, we do all the usual CERT stuff. We help different organizations with the incidents they have. Our customer base is basically the whole Finland. We concentrate on the critical infrastructure providers, but ISPs is very important part of our sort of customers. I wouldn't say customers, but stakeholders. We've been following the progress of the routing security and different technical aspects of it for quite a while already. And 2019, ENISA, the European Network and Information Security Agency, published a paper about 7 steps to shore up the border gateway protocol. And this was a good paper. It's a bit old already, but it goes through the basic stuff, the monitoring, coordination. You should publish your stuff, the IRRs and other routing policies. You should filter certain prefixes. Also be capable of doing AS-PAT filtering, BOGON filtering, and also to secure the route exchange between the ASNs. But it already mentioned RPKI at that point. It didn't go very deeply into it. It just said that you should, if you are able to publish the ROAS of your ASCs, and maybe also you should start considering dropping the invalid routes that are announced, which don't have or which after validation are invalid. This was the base on the work that we've been doing for a while when we are going to give a new regulation to the telecommunication sector about the information security on the telecommunication networks. And these 7 steps are pretty good start. But lately we've been taking a bit more deeper look into the RPKI status in Finland, and actually in some aspects it's good, but in others not that good yet. Hopefully we are going to the better direction. Another approach, of course, is mutual agreement of norms of routing security, the MANS project, which also has network operator actions. Some of them are compulsory, some of them are recommended if you want to be the member of Mars project or the group. You should prevent propagation of incorrect routing information, some filtering stuff, and also routing information on global scale, IRR and RPKI. It doesn't go very deeply into RPKI either, and it's also only a recommendation that you should publish the ROAS for your prefixes and also do some invalid filtering, but it's just a recommendation. MANS also has an IXP program action set, which is quite important because it goes in a bit different way, that you should promote this stuff to the members, like physics and TREX. I think you have done this, and last NOG meeting has a very good panel discussion related to routing security and the futures of it. And this is very important part, that you promote stuff, and also you provide some sort of services maybe that could help to adapt the new security, technical security aspects of the routing security. But what is the current situation about the adoption of the RPKI in Finland? I did some fast research on the subject and also checked their new paper from OECD. It's not very common source for papers regarding routing security, but actually the paper is pretty nice. They also approached us some time ago and asked about the regulation side on a Finnish society, that do we have any regulation related to routing security, and actually there is nothing actually mentioned in the regulation, but there are some aspects that you like filtering spoofed IP addresses, but nothing related to RPKI or BGP security in general. But it's a good paper. There's a link. You can find it pretty easily with Google also. And they have used data from Mars project, and they published a few nice diagrams on the report, and I stole one of them. And you can see from here how many valid RPK, well, this is a ROA records, signed ROAs, and it's somewhere around 50% at the moment, maybe a little less. And this is based on the advertised prefixes, not the whole address space, but the prefixes. This is from June. I checked the stats and it hasn't changed that much after that. There aren't that many invalids at the moment, but still it's under 50% the coverage on the Finnish network space. And this is one thing that we would like to promote to get it a bit higher. There are other countries, like in Estonia, we just talk about our Estonian colleagues, and they had a kind of a year-long project about getting the stuff better there, and they are going in a very good direction on this point, and also they are validating quite a lot already the ROAS on the different ISPs. There is a picture about that later. Then I did some research about physics members. This was quite just a quick mock-up that I took the ASNs that are physics members from the website and did a bit query to the RIPE-Stats RPKI check service, and it looks like all the routes, this is related to the prefixes that are announced. It was last week when I queried this, and there is unknowns over 40% and valid around 60% of the prefixes. But if you take out the large companies that are not actually Finnish ones, like Facebook, Cloudflare, and other that they are appearing there, the roots from the kind of Finland, it's a bit less, like only about 40% valid ROAS at the moment. It hasn't changed in a week that much. And of course there is Trex members, which is pretty much the same, but of course there are fewer participants, so it's a bit hard to compare these two, but there is 35% valid, and if you take out the not so Finnish pairing partners, there is like 50-50 situation, which is not bad, but there is definitely room to improve. This is another approach. This is the whole Finnish IP address space for IPv4 and IPv6. And last week the situation was that there were only 23% raw unknowns. But of course, because it is the whole address space and there are large network operators which have a lot of addresses and they have done their stuff well, it kind of affects the percentages. But there were only very few invalids, which was nice. I checked the same stats like a few months ago, and it hadn't changed that much, but there were a bit more invalids at that point. Of course, it changed all the time, so. But someone has noticed and corrected the routing information. Of course, we have to include AX address space. The situation is pretty nice, thanks to the one local big ISP who has done its homework well. And IPv6, 100%. But what about the validation? There is no use for the ROAS if no one validates the root advertisements, if they are valid or not. And this is data that comes from what's the other service? It's Appnix server, like Appnix server that can also provide stats a bit same way that the RIPES ones, but it has also row filtering data that they produce with some their own methodology and techniques. And according to this data, in Finland, June this summer, it was over 50% of the traffic that was covered by the filtering of invalids. It's a quite long story how they do it. It's they have changed the technique from the start, how they do it previously, but the latest technique that they use, they kind of queries the certain addresses from very different parts of the world, and they are distributing it, the network with Anycast, so it's reachable from many different parts of the world, so it's not biased in some certain area, because of course this data is not kind of the same if you look it in a different places of the internet. So it's one view on the situation. It's not the only one, but I didn't find any other projects that would continuously monitor this stuff, and I think it might be quite good estimate. But of course, it depends a lot about the transit providers that are on the way to the point that the traffic tries to go, and it doesn't go there if the routes are invalid. But they changed this during 1 week. This is a 1 week period that they changed the route from valid to invalid, and they measure how from different parts of the network the probes are able to connect to these services. The latest data was quite interesting. I just checked the current numbers. I don't know if anyone has looked into this service, but it's 84% for the Finnish IP space. It sounds quite high, and it has changed quite drastically like a few months ago. So there is someone has turned the notch. It was you. Many thanks to you. So if we put here the 84%, I think we are on the top, which is really nice. So what should we do next? This is our plan, how we would expedite the RPK adoption. Promote general awareness of RPKI, speed up raw signing, especially among ISPs, public sector and critical infrastructure providers. So that's the reason why I'm here, that I'm promoting to you. And the validation is very good level according to the data that I showed. But the raw publishing is not on that good level yet. So start publishing the raws. That's the first step. We will go to the public sector during this year or next year to promote the same stuff. So they would also publish the raws, because there are a lot of organizations, like public sector organizations, which are very critical to the Finnish community, and they haven't done anything about this. Some of them might not be aware of this stuff at all, but there are also organizations that already are doing the stuff right. Of course, the critical infrastructure providers, it's a very hard group of organizations, and those are the next targets that we are trying to promote this stuff. Then the RPK origin validation and invalid route dropping for the transit operators, IXP level. That, well, at the moment it doesn't look bad, but we can always improve, I think. And then when the technologies will mature, like BGP-SEC and ASPA, which are the most prominent at the moment, I think we will also promote those and also try to make a difference that also the equipment providers or the software would support the new technologies. That's a bit open question how we can do that, but you can always try. And our approach to this is not regulation based. We are renewing our regulation for the telecommunication net service providers, the regulation M67, during this winter, and the new regulation will be published next summer. And there will be workshops later on this year and on next year about the stuff. What are we going to include in the regulation about the routing security? There will be something, but we don't want to regulate stuff too much, but rather enable organizations to implement them. So we will provide support and maybe recommendations and maybe training. I don't know what it will be, but the approach is not a regulation based, but more like how can we help organizations to adapt and secure their networks. What to do next? The infrastructure is in place. Start using it. If you haven't published the ROS for the prefixes that you own, do it quickly, because now if the validation and dropping the invalids is already on that high level at some transit points or somewhere else, it really makes a difference if you publish those ROS. Maybe some time ago, some might think that it's not any use to publish those because no one is dropping the invalids, but things have changed. There is a very good documentation on the RIPE site, and if you need some assistance, you can always contact us, or you can contact your friendly internet exchange point people also. I think they also provide very good assistance for this. And of course, in future, prepare to implement the other technologies when they will be at that level that the software supports them and they are advocate in other ways. Okay, any questions?
So hi, Alec. This is Aleksi from Tampere. So you said that there will be working groups to work on the M67.
Yeah.
So are you going to be here for the dinner and sauna?
Unfortunately not.
Okay. So you, if you want to make sure that you get on one of these working groups, you need to catch him before he leaves.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not responsible for organizing the working groups. It's our regulative people. I'm on the search side, and there are a bit other people that are doing the actual work for the renewal of the regulation. But of course, you can contact me, or you can contact CERT. We can forward the information to the right people. It's fine.
Does anyone else have questions?
There is one, I think.
Jarkko Sonta from DNA. Have you considered setting up, let's say, some Finnish worded information page for end customer organizations for importance of route origin, the ROA validation, and that the end customers would do the signing of their prefixes, because even if operators sign their own announcements, but none of the end customers do that, the end customers' own blocks are not protected. So I think that's area where the largest room for improvement in Finnish.
Yeah, exactly. And the first step that I mentioned, it includes that also. We are making a guidance in Finnish, of course, and maybe in Swedish, what you should do, and maybe to put some screenshots from the RIPE portal, that it's really easy if you can't find the screenshots by yourself. There is a good guidance there, but we will make a material and start to promote to the public sector first, and then to the critical infrastructure providers, but also to any company, any customer of yours.
If you have this kind of Traficom labeled instructions, it's easier for operators to pinpoint. Hey, also the regulators recommend you to do this, so the operators can point to regulators' instructions. Hey, you really should do it. They probably might believe it better if it's coming from Traficom than from the local operator.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, but yeah.
I think RIPE has some docs on their website, so I think it might be easiest to translate those to Finnish and then
Yeah,
stamp
that
your
is
logo
one
on it.
approach that we have already contact RIPE contacts, and we can use reuse their material and kind of translate them, and
it's in their interest that you do.
Yeah,
so I'm sure they are willing to give the permission, and I think they might also be interested in hosting the Finnish version on their website as well if you go ahead and translate it.
Yeah.
So scratch their back, they scratch yours.
Sure.
Any other questions? I had another question. I just wanted to point out that I thought it was a bit funny that in Finland we already have a pretty high validation level, but the signing level is much slower. And it's funny because the signing is the easy part. Because all you need to really do is go to LIR portal and check one box and you're done. That's the easiest. Of course, you can go through a lot more trouble if you want to host the signing, all the keys and everything yourself. But RIPE has a service where they sign it for you and make sure that it stays signed. They re-sign it like every month or something. I don't remember the timers, but
it has changed quite recently, the situation about the signing or the validation. Like half year ago, it was very different situation, I think.
Yeah, someone from Traficom was at the last nog.fi meeting promoting this stuff, so maybe that is what helped us along.
Yeah, the panel discussion was very, very good. Unfortunately, I was not able to participate, but my colleague was here, and if you haven't seen the recording, watch it. It's really good.
So if there aren't any other questions or comments, then let's move on to the next presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Give a big hand.